Today I'd like to take you on a quick tour of my garden and give you an update on how things are growing. My garden is in Mesa, Arizona in Zone 9B. I love sharing garden inspiration and helpful tips so you can be successful in your garden too. So the garden is always in transition, but it is really in transition right now. We are transitioning off a very, very hot summer and coming into the cooler temperatures of fall. I've got some fall things planted, and there are still a few things really flourishing from the summer. So let's check it out. The star of the show definitely has to be this loofah vine. I have this loofah growing on this Gracie Modern arbor. It's so beautiful without the loofah, but now that it's got all of these beautiful blossoms growing on it, all of this fruit, it's really stunning. So loofah can take a long time to grow, so this is gonna be here for a while, and I'm not sorry about it. Planted cover crops in this bed, and they broke down a lot quicker than I thought they would. So I've actually already got some fall plantings going in here. Have some broccoli and cabbage. Gonna be coming back in and adding some more herbs and flowers in this bed. So we are definitely in transition. The nights are nice and cool, but we're still having a few really hot days. So I've got some of these fall plantings in here. Some of them are kind of struggling. You can see the Swiss chard, pretty wilted, but I'm just gonna kind of let them go and we'll see what survives and see which spots I need to fill in. There was a big windstorm here a couple weeks ago. It ripped down one side of my sunshade. The shade is perfectly fine, it didn't rip, but we took the shade down. I probably could have used it. As long as there's 100-degree temps, it's probably a good idea to keep that sunshade up. More fall plantings in here, along with this beautiful birdhouse gourd climbing up, starting to see the blossoms, male and female blossoms on there, hoping for some beautiful harvest from that. Basil's still going. So I always leave the end of the bed free to plant herbs and flowers, and that's what I've done here. I have a couple of this hyssop right here, which actually, I wish you could smell it. It smells, so this is root beer hyssop, and it smells just like root beer. So if you ever have a chance to check it out, please do. It's amazing. So I've got the herbs planted, both the hyssop on the end of my bed. I'll add in some flowers. Snapdragons I planted a few weeks ago have grown up through this trellis. I need to extend the trellis and actually add one more row of netting here to keep this growing up. Okay, the cutest little blossom you're ever gonna see, look at that. That is a baby cucamelon. Hoping for lots of cucamelons. On this side of the arch, I have these dwarf delicata squashes growing. Lots of squash formed. And I'm happy to see that these vines are a little bit more compact, which is what I was hoping. Gonna get lots of fruit in a small amount of space. More winter crops growing in here. Again, some of them are kind of struggling, and that's okay. What I like to see is what I'm seeing on this plant. Even though some of these outer leaves have kind of gotten crispy and died back, that new growth is still coming. So I think this one's gonna be okay. I spent last week pulling back the mulch on all of these beds and adding a thick layer of compost. The soil level at the end of the season always goes down, and that compost is going to feed the soil, which will hopefully feed my plants. I haven't done much with this bed yet. There's still a lot of peppers going in it. Got these beans that I planted a few weeks ago that are starting to climb. Love seeing that. I find the beans like to grow straight up, and so all I need to do is just kind of tip them over and help them find the trellis. And then once they find the trellis, they start growing up. The basil and peppers in this bed are growing great. I'm gonna leave them alone, keep harvesting them. As spots open up, I'll add in some cool plantings. I'll probably come in here and plant some carrots in this bed later on. More cool season plantings in here. We've got some celery, cabbage, lots of kale. We seem to eat a lot of kale, and I am so ready for fresh kale from the garden again. This passion fruit vine survived the summer and was covering this trellis. It was getting a little bit out of control. So once temperatures started to drop, I went ahead and cut it back, but I was a little bit nervous that that was gonna kill it. So I'm happy to see that there's lots of new growth, even blossoms starting to form, so I think it's gonna survive. One of my favorite things in fall is purple hyacinth bean vine. It is beautiful. Look at these blossoms. One plant comes from one little seed, These flowers develop their beautiful and cut arrangements, and they will form pods like a pea or bean, right? And then you can harvest and collect those seeds. If you're growing sweet potatoes, yours are probably doing the same thing and just climbing everywhere, letting all of that energy go into the roots of the plant, and hopefully in a month or two, we'll be harvesting nice big sweet potatoes. The last fruits of summer are forming here on this Minnesota midget melon. We've got one here, one here. So we'll let this keep going until those fruits develop. It's always hard to know when to take out different plants, but if you're still enjoying the fruit and it's still producing well, you can keep that plant in as long as you'd like. When you're sick of eating the fruit, or if the plant gets diseased, or you're ready to plant something else in its spot, at that point, it's a good time to take out the plant. If you're growing asparagus this summer, hopefully this is exactly what it looks like. Lots of green fronds growing everywhere. These fronds are collecting all of that energy and taking it down to the roots. So I'm just gonna let this keep going until temperatures get cold and it dies back. At that point, I'm gonna cut it back. But for now, I'm happy to see these green fronds because that means lots of asparagus next spring. Started these foxglove seeds indoors a couple of months ago, and I just got them planted out, and I'm really happy to see that most of them are transitioning pretty well. I overplanted just in case I lost a few. It looks like I've got one there that doesn't look too happy, and maybe one here that's got a little bit of damage. But these will grow throughout the cooler months and then be stunningly breathtaking this spring. Cannot wait to see these blooms. I am still patiently or not so patiently waiting for this roselle to bloom. The plants are huge. I have one here, and hopefully before long, this will be covered in blooms. About 10 days later, then you pick the fruit, and then there's so many fun things we can do with that fruit. We make tea, jam, cranberry sauce, actually roselle sauce. These blossoms are getting so close. You can see that bud is forming here. It's gonna have a beautiful flower inside. The flower is gonna fall off, and then a tasty calyx is gonna form. A new to me plant this year was mahogany splendor hibiscus. It grew throughout all of the hot summer months and has looked great all summer. It's really taking off in these cooler temperatures as well. This is a beautiful cut flower, and it's very pretty in flower arrangements. The sun gold tomatoes that I planted are climbing this trellis. They're really getting pretty tall. And finally, these roses that I pruned a couple of weeks ago are putting out lots of new growth. I cannot wait for the blooms. Thanks so much for joining me on this tour of my garden. Let me know in the comments what's growing in your garden. If you would like to learn more, consider joining Growing in the Garden Academy. I teach a live online course every month about seasonal topics, and members have access to recordings of all past classes. Academy members also receive my garden journal, what I'm planting, harvesting, and doing in my garden, delivered to their inbox every 2 weeks. I hope to see you there.